Right, where were we? Yes, number 5.
Number 5. Okay, because Garrett did this on his list, I've awarded myself the same courtesy because on any given day, I could swap any of these matches out from this trilogy, like for a different reason they could be in this list. So that's why I'm just kind of including all 3 of them. And that is CCK versus LEX from Progress episodes, the Coast to Coast New York show, Chapter 80 and Chapter 87. For me, this is the best tag team wrestling ever. You could put any 3 of these matches up against a lot of the big classics, such as Garrett obviously really loves Golden Lovers versus the Young Bucks, for example. Anything like Doug Furnace and Dan Crawford versus Kenta Kobashi and Kikuchi. But for me, this is like the peak of it. So what's interesting is the story they told. So essentially the first match was just because Progress were doing this American tour. So obviously they had a lot of the top British talent and they got in a lot of local American talent. So obviously in New York, they managed to get a hold of LAX, who was still in Impact at the time, I think.
Yeah.
Well, obviously they were because they were using the LAX name then. So this is obviously Santana and Ortiz I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, essentially it's just a friendly. It starts off as just this friendly match of like essentially the best team from one of the best teams from England against one of the best teams from America. And they just completely go at it. Somewhat the best team from England. I think this is Lycos, unfortunately, isn't in any of these. It was all Gresham because I think these were the times when Lycos were injured. But yeah, it starts with a friendly match with CCK getting the win on LEX's home soil. So after the tour ends, there's a couple of chapters and they manage to get LEX across to the Electric Ballroom in Camden and they have a part 2 with LEX picking up the win on now CCK's home soil. So that sets it up perfectly for a third match. And by this point, the whole thing has just been a friendly contest. It's just these 2 amazing tag teams, one whose moniker is sick fucking tag moves, against LEX, who are no slouches in the tag move department either. Constantly just trying to want to be driven by now. It's 1-1. Get to the third contest, and this is where it starts to get a bit nasty. CCK are pulling out all the dirty heel tactics to try and get that third win. So it starts off the match being as a friendly contest. By the end, CCK are doing everything they can to win. And it's we talked about this match, actually, the third encounter on our top 5 favorite tag team matches. This is the match where, to get the win, CCK, I believe Gresham gets Ortiz in a figure 4, rolls out the ring. So they're on the outside. Then Brooks gets Santana into the crowd and gets an octopus hold on him. They leave the holds in until it gets to about the 8 count. Then they release, and CCK dive back in the rings to get the 10 count victory. So very cheap victory. And it's one of those rare examples of a countdown finish. A lot of people hate them, but if done right, it's the perfect thing to set up the next match. There's a reason why I'm not putting their 4th encounter on. So the 4th encounter happens a couple more chapters later when they did the Natural Progression 2019, I think.
Is that the 3 versus 3 where it's got like Eddie Kingston and Lycos in there now?
Yeah. So at the end of the third encounter, Santana and Ortiz pissed off, got on the microphone and say they will be back and they're bringing a friend. And this is like what essentially helped bring Eddie Kingston more into Progress for a while. The match is good. It just, compared to the other 3, it's a bit of a clusterfuck. So it's like it's a tornado tag, no holds barred, weapons are brought in. It's still a great match, but then it is sloppy in parts because it's the typical thing of indie tables not breaking, things like that. And it still reaches a good conclusion at the end, but I would just say compare the rest of it. The way I can liken it to is, so think of like Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. Imagine if they had a similar series of matches, which they somewhat did. You've got 2, essentially the best technician wrestlers on the planet. And the whole feud is just built around that. And then after 3 contests with some of the results, the final match is going to be a hardcore match. Doesn't really fit, does it?
Mm.
I just feel like for the type of story they were telling and the matches they were doing, which was just all about them proving which was the better tag team, you didn't really need to introduce weapons or a hardcore element. You could have still done the 3-on-3, bring the backup in. That would have been best enough, but you could have just still kept it as like a standard tag team affair and still told the story you needed to. So that's why the 4th one doesn't quite make the cut, even though if you want to get the full round of story, it is still worth watching. But for me, their first 3 encounters are brilliant, and it's one of my favorite trilogies. Technically quadrilogy for the last one, but yeah, it's just like the tag moves are unreal. And there's still like little moments where they just stop and have a bit of fun. Like there's like a whole segment, I think, in the 3rd one where they're just having a contest at who can gyrate the hips the best. With Gresham acting like he can't do it properly, so he really awkwardly shifts his hips around and just looks really awkward. And then they even get the referee involved, and yeah, it's got like all kinds to it. It's just really good.
That's a great way for this feud. It's a great way of getting heat on a feud about getting the away win, as we call it in football.
Yeah.
Like going to America and getting the away win, and then coming over here and getting the away win. Like that's how like derbies are made. Because I don't know the full story, but like I don't know why Vince McMahon hates hometowns so much.
Yeah.
I think there might be ties to like the screw job there, where he was like bitter about how that went down or whatever. But like,
Yeah.
a hometown, as we saw with Britt Baker, and as you saw with MJF, and as we've seen with people like British Bulldog and stuff like that, home field advantage is a very, very cool storytelling technique in wrestling. Home country advantage is even more fun.
Yeah.
Because it brings in that like weird innate bit and like nationalism. So when, like you said, this beginning as a friendly contest and then going into that like more kind of prideful blood feud that it ends up turning into. Yeah, I'm putting a star next to this. I'm watching the ever-loving heck out of these matches. Thanks for your login, Greg.
You're welcome.
But yeah, no, we all know, we all seen the work of the Inner Circle by now. We all know how good Santana and Ortiz are, and Gresham, of course, need more be said of his current achievements and what's going on with him right now. As for Chris Brooks, let me make this incredibly clear. We love Chris Brooks.
We fucking love Chris Brooks.
Love Chris Brooks. Could I make that more clear? No, because we love him.
Here's what really excites me. So as of recording this, AEW has just announced their new partnership with DDT. Chris Brooks works for them.
Yes.
And there's a lot of strong rumors that Gresham is to sign with AEW. Could get this feud in AEW. It's not out the realms of possibility.
Yeah, get Brooks in AEW. Heck, put CCK against the Young Bucks. That would kick off.
I mean, like I said in my top 5, when our top 5 people will become all elite, I still want all of Schadenfreude there. But if we can just at least get Chris Brooks and Jonathan Gresham there for now, then hopefully the rest of the stars will align. But yeah,
for sure. And whilst you're there, whilst you're window shopping, get Aussie Open over as well, because they're great. But yeah, no, I sort of semi knew about this trilogy, parentheses quadrilogy. I knew of it, but there's so much wrestling and so much good wrestling that it's hard to keep up sometimes, and you do need it streamlined and spoon fed. So I appreciate that. That's exactly what's happened to me right now. But yes, thank you ever so much for that, Greg. A solid number 5. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty. Number 4.
Well, I mean, you're right about the nitty gritty there. I'd say these 4 matches in particular are definitely why I'm a wrestling fan, and I'm going to have some big stories to tell for some of the later ones, but this is just sort of more of a fun one. This has got to be one of the matches I've seen. I'd probably say this is the match I've seen the most, like completely, and that is the 2001 Royal Rumble match. For
Oh.
my money, the best match. So the way I like it, what a good Royal Rumble should be, is imagine you've got. It should be structured. So imagine if you had like a chapter select on a DVD. You want a Royal Rumble match should basically be it should have storylines converging to it, and it should be setting up storylines. But more than that, if you want a solid one, it needs to be built up into segments, and that's what this one does. So it goes from something like the opening, eventually having Matt and Jeff squaring off for what was probably the first time in WWE ring, which is brotherly respect. That then has Drew Carey coming out with both of Matt and Jeff then getting eliminating themselves, and then that's when Kane comes out and nearly chokeslams them through the ring. Then after that, it goes into the part of the match where it's basically like it turns into a hardcore match. You get all these different hardcore wrestlers bringing weapons out and start beating the crap out of each other. Then Kane, after that, goes on his absolute tear, beginning his record-setting elimination streak, throwing people left, right, and center. Then you get the Honky Tonk Man coming out for a legend spot, and he gets absolutely clobbered by Kane with his own guitar, and so on and so forth. And that's just the way that this Rumble keeps going on. And again, so many storylines were happening going into it, and so many were set up coming out of it. And again, it's just such a stacked Rumble. I mean, this is when WWE had one of the most stacked mid cards ever, and just to watch the names come out proves that like everyone there is a star and is someone that everyone loves. And again, it's one of those Rumbles as well where I guess you could see the winner coming because it was Stone Cold and this was his third and final Rumble win. But at the same time, there was plenty of names in there that you could believe if someone else picked someone else. So again, The Rock is in this Rumble. Undertaker's in this Rumble. Kane's in this Rumble. And before going into it, he is set up like quite a big star. Rikishi came out at number 30. He was becoming quite a big star.
In fact,
as well.
all of Too Cool were in this Rumble because they had that little the spot with them all dancing together, right?
That's the 2001, mate.
Oh, bugger. Yeah, no, I did see that they were all in this Rumble. I was like, oh, I wasn't sure, but yeah, no, you're right.
So, like this is the one where, so at one point, Undertaker and Kane are basically the only two in the ring, and the big thing is like announcers like, oh, are they on the same page? And they basically work as a team for a little bit, and then it's just them two in the ring, and Scotty Too Hotty comes out with like a look of absolute fear on his face because he realizes he's about to get absolutely fucked. And he gets into the ring and gets completely annihilated, then turfed out.
We love Scotty Too Hotty. I mean, heck, look at the name in my wait, it's that way. Look at the name right there. Is what I used to be called in primary school. In fact, there was a teacher that used to call me Scotty Too Hotty, which made me feel a kinship towards that wrestler. But an absolute solid choice because I'm looking at this Rumble and I'm seeing not just the names you mentioned, but I'm seeing like Raven is in there. Freaking like you said, Honky Tonk Man, The Godfather, Taz, Bradshaw, Hardcore Holly, William Regal. Yeah, it's like yeah. Billy Gunn, and what a last two of Kane and Stone Cold Steve Austin as well. There's that image of Kane with the chair. Is that the final spot? Where he has a chair?
So the final spot's great. So it has a bloody Austin because essentially Austin at this point was still had only just recently come back and he was still in the feud with Triple H because Triple H had been the one who'd orchestrated the hit and run on him. So they wouldn't earlier on in the night. Triple H was in a world title match against Kurt Angle, and Austin screws him out of the belt. So as Austin comes out the ring for this, Triple H does the same, tries to do the same for him, bloodies Austin up and leaves him on the outside of the ring. So Austin eventually gets in the ring, busted open and bloody. Comes down to him and Kane, and then it's the coolest visual ever where Austin has a chair and is just swinging for the fences on Kane. Then does a massive run up and clotheslines him, nearly takes himself over with him, then just rebounds back and does a barrel roll and is just like all blood coming down. And it's just such a cool visual. Just something about Austin covered in blood just makes a cool visual.
Yeah, because he's like your typical, like, if WWE was in the same universe as, say, the Expendables movies, then like Austin would be the guy at the front.
Yeah.
He is an action movie hero come to life. but like ramped like to the max in a lot of his just kind of like, oh, I don't give a crap kind of sensibilities, which is
quite an apt choice he made there, because Austin is in the first Expendables film.
Is he really?
He's one of the villains, yeah. He's like the main henchman for the villain.
I did not know this.
Yeah.
The only thing I know about the Expendables movies, and it's because I have one of my best friends growing up is from Bulgaria. I can't remember what year Expendables came out, but when it came out, my friend was like, they filmed it all in Bulgaria, bit of national pride there. I'm like, oh yeah, no, totally get that, fair enough. But that's all I know about the Expendables movie, other than it's just got loads of blokes in it with guns. But Stone Cold, fair enough. But yeah, I think that they couldn't have struck gold harder with Austin, and he's like the classic Rumble winner, and that final two of the classic Rumble winner against the classic Rumble competitor of Kane, with all the accolades that he still he held until Braun Strowman beat it semi-recently, and he held on to that for a while.
Oh, so, well, like Kane had that record for a good 11 years. It was actually Roman, I think, beat it first. And then technically Braun got it because of the Greatest Royal Rumble. But yeah, Kane had it for like 11, 12 years before that happened.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm going to put a star next to this. This is another one I need to watch back. I love a good Rumble. And that's thanks to Brogan, because he gave me a big DVDs, a big box of DVDs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he borrowed it off of someone else and then lent it to me, and I that was during uni, and I still have not given that back. It's on the side in my room. So yeah, no, I whenever Wi-Fi's down, I stick a DVD in. I like a good DVD, and that is one of my regular rotators. So yeah, always big on a Rumble, and this is a great choice.
This is the best Rumble. I'll put that out there right now. Best Royal Rumble ever.
Yeah, I'd say it's. I'd really dedicate my brain cells to it, but
it's definitely one of those ones where it's in contention. Like for a lot of people, it could be 92, where obviously Flair won. That's up there for a lot of people. It's like, this one. Yeah, the release 5 Rumbles that people will argue is the best one. So yeah,
even Nakamura. Nakamura was a great Rumble.
That was a great one. Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. We're now heading headfirst into your top 3.
We are indeed. Number 3. I'd say a lot is owed to this match. So again, ever since I got into wrestling, I would say I've never had a lapse period like a lot of people do. I've stuck with wrestling, and particularly WWE. There were points I wasn't watching it, but I was always going online to keep up, watch highlights when I could, etc. But I would say there were points where I felt like I was losing hope a little bit, until this match came along and really sort of showed me what could be out there, and that is Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sami Zayn from NXT Takeover Dallas.
Absolutely, right on my list too.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just this. I remember watching this match. I think I watched it live, or maybe the day after. But yeah, at this point, I think it was in my second year of uni. I hadn't watched a lot of NXT. I was still watching a lot of WWE because the network had just come along, and then I was still very new to NXT. And again, I was not familiar with who Shinsuke was. I knew because his name came up at the time when it was the big 4 signings. It was him, AJ, and obviously Gallows and Anderson. Shinsuke was the only one I wasn't that familiar with. So I had no real expectations of what to expect when this match came about. And then from the instant the lights go down and that music started playing, I was like, okay, this guy's weird, but I dig it. I really like it. And then he gets in the ring, the match begins, and it was unlike anything I hadn't seen before. Like, you got to think I'd never seen anything akin to strong style before. And all of a sudden I was like, whoa, what the hell is this kind of wrestling? This is unreal. Like, Shinsuke and Zayn go hell for leather in this match, and like from the this first spell to the end, they're just killing each other. Again, it's some of the stiffest strikes. I mean, Sami Zayn's a solid wrestler, but I never thought I'd see the day he was like full on throwing these stiff forearms into another dude's face. Clearly, just trying to match Nakamura move for move. And I think it's one of, and I remember it was one of the first matches I'd seen in a long time where I was sat on my bed, like lying in my bed, and by the end of the match, I had somehow migrated to sitting on the edge of my bed, just staring intently at the screen, reacting to everything that was happening. I was just like, this is unreal. And yeah, it's one of those ones I've gone back and watched multiple times, and it never loses its appeal for me. The one thing I can say about it, which I think we talked about in yours, is that it's a bit of a sour note, because this is like still for me, like Nakamura peaked with this first match, and we just haven't seen the same thing out of him throughout the rest of his WWE career. He's still doing great stuff, but it just feels like he threw it all out there in the first match and hasn't quite hit that same level again. Whether he's been allowed to or not, he still hasn't hit it.
In my opinion, though, that's what makes this match so special.
Yeah,
because it's special for a multitude of reasons. It's like a passing of an era, like I said in my top 10. But the fact that it is a flash in the pan, it ended up being, despite the fact that they're both on the same brand, I think, a once in a lifetime type match to see in WWE, where all of a sudden we're getting these layers in terms of like their style of wrestling and how they apply them and why they apply them happening in this match. And then the complexities come in and how they counter each other during that mindset, because Nakamura does go a little bit Western in terms of the spice he puts into his strong style, but Sami Zayn goes full strong style for a lot of his stuff. But whenever he goes Western, Nakamura has a counter for it. Every inch of this match felt like a glorious chess game. And I'll tell you who sold Nakamura to me during that first initial Big Four signing, because he did like Adam Blompier did a video on the These four getting signed, and I was religiously watching What Culture back then in my first year of uni, just to keep up with the wrestling, because like as you said, it got hard, and sometimes that very funny YouTube personalities made that a lot easier, which I think a lot of Adam Blompier's popularity can be credited to that.
Yeah.
When he summarized who Shinsuke Nakamura was by saying he was like old boy meets Michael Jackson, and like saying like he should be treated as the Japanese Brock Lesnar, and watching his match against AJ Styles that year at Wrestle Kingdom, I'm like, absolutely, look at this guy. I was like looking up like Google articles about this guy's entire history, being like, who is this gentleman? Who is this guy? What kind of amazing Avengers Infinity War type crossover event are we about to see happen in WWE NXT? And that was the build up in my head. Suddenly I understood what this match was, and it was and like I said, like you said, it's a shame, but the fact that this was a flash in the pan, in my opinion, made it all the more special.
Yeah, I agree. I still hope that we'll see similar brilliance from Nakamura. I think when we discussed it at the time, I think a lot of it is because you don't see a lot of strong style in WWE, and I think when you get the main roster, I think it's something Vince doesn't really want, so that's why he's probably a little bit shackled. I mean, he still does great stuff, like his character stuff can be fun, it can be interesting, and he has had a few decent matches on the main roster. Again, it's just compared to what could have been from seeing this match, you can't help but feel a little bit disappointed. But overall, again, I'm grateful we got it, because I don't think I would have ever quit watching wrestling. But again, this was like a good period, because this is where things got really interesting again. Like stuff on the main roster was still a little bit hit and miss, but there was still some cool stuff there. But this was like the perfect point where NXT would then go on a complete hotbed of takeovers. Because this was like the same area where DIY were like the tag team champions, and that obviously led into their feud. You had Asuka, who eventually would come in as well for the women's side of it. so much cool stuff going on, and it really kind of helped me reinforce my love of wrestling and see that there was still an aspect of WWE where stuff was like good.
Yeah, because it's like like you say, like just like keeping in tabs of wrestling sometimes. It's one of those weird things where it's easy to fall out of love with it, but it makes the roller coaster ride so much better when you fall back in love with it. And
Mhm.
it's stuff like this that does lend that, because when you watch the match as well, you see the crowd in attendance feed off of what's going on in the ring,
Yeah.
and you can imagine them all being wrestling fans. There's something that might have happened to them at some point. There is a dip that does happen.
Oh
There
yeah.
is like you can lose your interest in this sometimes. It's easy to get bogged down, but yeah, everyone in attendance is so lucky for having seen this match and the absolute brutal spectacle that it is.
I agree. No, again, it's one that I've just absolutely loved since the day I've seen it. I think this match immediately became something. If I thought about a top 10, as soon as I'd seen it, like, okay, that's definitely a top 10 favorite match of mine. It's just crazy. I mean, it's just like throughout. It's just there's so many great moments in it. Like the whole Zayn going for the DDT through the turnbuckle and
Oh,
getting caught with that
that
beautiful spinning
kick!
kill kick. Oh, it's so
Oh,
good. And again, it's just the fan. It was like what a hell of an arrival, what a hell of a debut for someone. I mean, again, I imagine we weren't the only people watching that who had no idea who the hell Nakamura was, and he kind of showed why he should be considered a big deal from day one. It was just unreal.
incredible. Yes, a solid pick because I picked it, and I think I put it in a similar place. It's either there
I
or
think it
second
was
for
there.
me.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're on similar territory with that one.
Yes, so that's why I'm saying a very good choice. But the same hurdles come up, Greg. You're in the high jump in the Olympics, and you're notching the bar up yourself. So tell me, your number two.
Number
How's it gonna?
two is there's gonna be a bit of a story to this one. Because this match really kind of, I guess, sort of saved me at a point when I was really low. In a sense, I'll explain. So my number two pick is Ilya Dragunov versus Jordan Devlin from Progress, Chapter 91, Prog on the Tyne, which was their first and so far only show in Newcastle. So to give you the backstory about this, um, essentially what was one of the like lowest parts of my life was my last year living in London. So to give people a little bit of background, I was in London for 4 years. So I went there for uni. So 3 years I was at university, and you'll know, Scott, because when we became friends, like I carried a lot of baggage with me to London that took
Mhm.
a while to get over. My first year was very dicey. Like there was one point where Jace had to come surprise visit me on a weekend because I was in a really low place, and he just wanted to make sure I was okay because it was first time away from home, dealing with a lot of stuff, which I don't really want to get into here. You're aware of it.
Yeah.
And then things got better because like I was loving uni life. Life in London was great. I met people like yourself. I had loads of friends. It was great. Then the fourth year rolled around, so uni had ended. And what happened was I stayed. Most of the people I'd made friends with had left because they were finished and didn't want to stick around, which is fair. I can't blame them if they wanted to go back home. And I was stuck working a job I fucking hated full time to pay rent and had nothing. I was just incredibly lonely. And that's what it boiled down to. Like, I would spend most of my waking days that last year at this working this job I hated, would barely see people, which is why I was grateful for the people who were there. So massive shout out to people like Garrod, Lucy, Ella, and Oliver when he was still living there, because without them, I'd have gone mental. And obviously yourself when you were around, but I think you'd obviously gone by that point as well. Um,
That was in my final year of uni, but
yeah.
I was
So you were
struggling to
there
keep
for a
my head
little.
afloat. Yeah.
Yeah, you were there for a little bit. It was then obviously when that summer rolled around, you obviously went back home, which is again fair.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I mean, like to put in perspective, there was just some days where I just was just sat in the house and all I really do is eat pizza, play video games, and watch wrestling. The only other than when I got like I think Gary will tell you like when I could eventually the highlights were when I could go around the dwelling with you guys and watch wrestling, and I was just super thankful a lot of the time because, like, I don't know whether I could hit it that well. I think a lot of people could see stuff was bothering me, and I was just happy to be with people. So again, it's that thing of like wrestling's always been there for me, and I think one of the big things that helped me pull out the funk was like this is when I got the one thing that made London bearable was my friends, but then it was because I discovered Progress. So I discovered what it was, got the demand, loved it, and found, oh shit, well, it's on my doorstep. I can go to shows. And luckily, the way works eventually lined up, I started going to shows regularly. Made me feel so much better and just kind of try and crawl out of this funk I was in. And then it wasn't also that, it was also listen to podcasts and then listen because of Progress. I listened to Tuesday Night Jaw, which is Jim Smallman's podcast, who obviously was one of the co-owners of Progress. So just blew this whole thing open. And eventually I got to the point where I'd hit so low that I started to rebound up. So I decided, all right, I don't want to be in London anymore. I think it was in 2019, I think I left. So what happened was I had set myself 3 goals. I was like, I'm gonna leave London. I want to be happy. I want to leave London and I want to get a better job. And I hit all 3 of those goals. And a big reason for that was stuff like Progress and Tuesday Night Jaw. And without these, I don't think I'd be doing this podcast now. And I don't know if I'd be in a great place like I am today. And I think what kind of really sort of cemented it was like the fact that a few months of being back home, the thing that really helped me in London was coming to my home neck of the woods. And this match just kind of cemented to me that I was finally in a happy place and I was finally doing well. I didn't feel like a loser. I didn't feel like a failure because that's what I kind of felt like a lot of that final, like a failure. I'd worked so hard and wasn't achieving my goals and I was just making myself miserable. But then to get home and be happy again and just focus on myself and just being happy, I think this was like the perfect thing to show I'd finally reached that point because it was this match is just and it just if you just look at the match itself, it's unreal. Like it's one of the most amazing atmospheres I've been in for a match. Like I liken it to being in a football crowd. Like the crowd is perfectly split with people chanting for both Devlin and Ilya, and they just absolutely kill it in this match. Like Jace was there, and he'll tell you it's one of the best, hands down, the best wrestling match I've seen live in person. It's just so unreal.
Wow. Need more be said, really. Yeah, these 2 wrestlers, as they are, I've not seen this match either, but goddamn, do I want to? These guys would put on a heck of a match just in my head. And what you were saying about like London and like the power of wrestling, the power of the thing we like art is of course expression. This is an art form and a very expressive one at that.
Yeah,
And it helps. It helps to relate to these guys. It helps because London is a pressure cooker, a
yeah,
financial pressure cooker that can isolate people. And you can get this with most other super cities across the world. This is a very common thing that happens in like New York and stuff like that, where it can make people feel isolated. I mean, to not divulge too much, of course, but like you were living in a flat share by yourself in one tiny little room. I
yeah,
know, like, not to name drop them, but they were getting on your nerves too at one point, and like it's easy to feel isolated in a world like that, especially when um, all you're doing is waking up, going to work, living to work, working to work, working to live. It's 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 uh it's the modern day, like it's the wheels and the cogs, and yeah, it's genuinely like it's humbling to hear that you've gotten out of that and you're happier for it. It's genuinely really nice to hear. Um, and it's even like it's an indictment of wrestling. It's progress, yes, but wrestling as well. That it can help in these ways, and it can help people, and because what it is at the end of the day is good old fashioned fun.
yeah,
It's a wonderful pompous soap opera of big dudes beating the crap out of each other. It's Punch and Judy come to life, and it's this marvelous thing that whoever when you meet a wrestling fan, boom, there's so many conversations to be had. Heck, we can do this podcast forever, and we could
yeah.
that we still need to cover stuff, and there's still so much of the rabbit hole to dive into. and you can build friendships off of this kind of thing. I mean, heck, like that's where our friendship initially blossomed from over wrestling.
Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so it's such an important thing, and like uh, I know a Newcastle crowd. I know a Newcastle crowd can
Yeah,
get
yeah.
good. I've heard of what atmosphere is like at St James's Park or the Stadium of Light. To that's just the football stuff, let alone any of the gigs that must happen over there. Or it's like a regular place for like stand-up comedians to go. You know, look at any rock tour venue. This is me kissing Newcastle's ass at the moment, but like look at any like rock tour, international or national, and you'll see Newcastle is on every single one without fail, and that's because they can bring the hype to it. And these two wrestlers as well, I mean, peak progress. Not enough praises could be said of both men.
Absolutely.
Devlin's been like the top one of the top, if not the top boy in WWE UK NXT. And the same with Dragunov,
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
because he's currently holding the title. And you know what? Like, if they do a Newcastle takeover for NXT UK, bet your fucking bottom dollar I'll get on the plane over, because there's no way in fucking hell I'm driving, because every car I have brakes on me. Uh, I'll get on the plane. I'm not taking my chances. Or I'll get Garrett to give me a lift. Either
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
But yes, no, it'll be absolutely wonderful to come see like a wrestling show up in Newcastle, and come see you and come see Jace and Oliver if he's up for. But yes, it was a really nice summary of that match there, Greg, and thank you for sharing a lot of that stuff as
No,
well.
absolutely. I mean, I'm a big advocate for like mental health, and this is one thing I've been wanting to introduce in the pod more, is talking about, because essentially pro wrestling has saved my life more times than I care to mention. Like, this is
Mm.
why I'm a fan, is because it's been there for me at my darkest moments and has always helped me pick me back up. I mean, like, I think it's no secret I'm a huge Progress fanboy, and it's because, again, it was thanks to Progress, the few friends I had, and Jim Smolin and Tuesday Night Joe, that I was able to keep myself sane in like one of the darkest points where I was just feeling miserable. And it was because of Progress that I finally opened up my eyes to a whole bigger world of wrestling. Like, that really kicked open the door and made me realize there's more to wrestling beyond WWE, and a lot of it is more to what I like as a fan of wrestling. And that's why I've branched out to watch stuff like All Japan, Ring of Honor, like all the other indie stuff. So yeah, I just owe it a lot, and I think this is like the perfect. Again, this is the perfect match, because this is like, I was like just on board right when Peak Progress. This is when Peak Progress was about to come to its end, I'd say. But like, what a hell of a way it finally like capped things off. It's just unreal, really. It just means a lot to me.
Amazing stuff. Yeah. I would love to see another Progress show if they do another one. And heck, if they come to Southampton, it's not likely, but if they come to Southampton, yeah.
Well, hang on a second. So, Progress just announced that a bunch of tour dates, actually,
I bet they go to Portsmouth, but not Southampton. I
because
bet you any money.
because
They
Newcastle was on there. It's called the Viper
Ooh,
Tour, and every show is named after a type of different viper snake.
neat.
Okay, so yeah, there's codename Copperhead, which is in Sheffield. Codename Cottonmouth, Newcastle. Codename California Mountain Snake in Birmingham. Sidewinder, Manchester, and Snake Charmer, Cardiff. So
Uh,
I think
none of them. None of them.
Manchester. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Birmingham would be the closest, and that's
Birmingham
still
would be the
ages away.
closest. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I at least know the way to Birmingham.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's
just
helpful.
straight up.
Yeah, and heck, I could visit. Matt whilst I'm kind of sort of in town. But yeah, no. God damn it, Progress. At least do one in Bournemouth. Come on. Uh, there's a beach there. Are you not entertained? Um, yeah. I'll get Garrett to give me a lift. It's fine. Right now, wow, what a ride this top 10 has been. We're now going into the last one, number one. Greg, take it away.
So yeah, number one is basically the match that basically I'd say was what cemented me being a wrestling fan. And it basically, whenever I watch it, it takes me all the way back to being a 7-year-old boy completely falling in love with this crazy world. And it's an absolute classic. It's The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin from WrestleMania 17. Like, no, by no, like, when it comes to a lot of what I like at wrestling, I like the in-ring quality. I like absolute Mac classics with plenty of like amazing technical moves and all that kind of stuff. What this match is just is not really a lot of that. It's just a straight up brawl for the most part. But what they tell in this match, I mean, when you think about the matches already that have come before on, because WrestleMania 17 is not only it's for a lot of people their favorite WrestleMania, and it's certainly mine. It's the first one I watched, so I was lucky that that was a thing. So it's always been my favorite WrestleMania and my favorite pay per view. You think all the matches happening on this card, by the main event, you wouldn't blame the fans for being a bit burnt out, but they're still red hot for it. And what I love about this match is like the build for it is pretty short when you think of it. Fair enough, The Rock and Austin already had history, but there was only a month build for this match, and they still built it perfectly. And even in that short build, the match just begins. Like, what I hate most now, and you see it in loads of matches, they build this amazing blood feud. And then when they finally get in the ring, the bell rings, and then they just lock up. They just do standard wrestling fare.
Yeah.
This match begins with Austin basically charging, The Rock's doing his big taunt to the crowd as he comes in. The match begins with Austin just walking up to him, turning around and laying punches into him. And then that's the way the match just goes from there. It's just two guys laying the crap out of each other. And again, it's a bit similar to the MJF CM Punk match. It's fast enough to a point, but then it can be a bit slow at points, but everything they do feels believable. Like the bit where The Rock gets slingshotted into the turnbuckle on the outside, busts his head open. Austin just trying everything he can to win the title. Because that's what it's all about. Austin, like the classic promo says in the hype package, he needs to beat The Rock more than anything he could ever imagine. And he's willing to do everything. Like he pulls out things like the $1 Million Dream, which was his original finisher when he came to WWE.
Yeah.
He puts a rock bottom on The Rock, hits him with submissions, does everything, and The Rock keeps kicking out and answering his call. And again, it's only until he sides with the devil himself that he's able to put The Rock down for the 1, 2, 3. And I know a lot of people hate that ending. As a kid, I loved it. And again, I've still got a lot of love for it now. Like, I think Austin's heel run is very underrated. He did a lot of cool stuff with that. Whether it was the right thing to do at the time is another story. But I just loved it. And again, I watched this match and I'm just transported back to being a little kid, believing in what I saw in front of me, being involved with the story, believing it was like the most important thing in my world at that moment. I just absolutely love it.
A fantastic choice. This is, in my opinion, the match, right? Because WWE have been trying to capture the magic of this match.
Yeah.
Since it happened, in my opinion, and a lot of the times they have come close, and they're gunning for it this weekend at WrestleMania.
Oh yeah.
Because they're like, have you seen all the promos of it being like, this is the biggest match to happen in WrestleMania history? I think back to all the ones beforehand, including this one.
So this is their issue, is that they've just lost all sense of how to build a good feud a lot of the time now in WWE. The thing is, I like the Roman and Brock feud. The issue, what we've got now, when you think about the Austin and Rock feud, it was never forced. It was just always organically built. And for the most part, I think the reason why it was special is because the only time they ever really squared off one-on-one was always on a Mania card. I might be a little bit wrong there, but when you think about it, their 3 main matches are all at WrestleMania. Anything else involved them is usually multi-man matches or maybe tag team. When it came to them just fighting off, it was always at Mania, always in the main event. And it always felt special with 17 still being their best outing. If you compare it to the one that's coming up this weekend, Brock and Roman have already had several matches before, some at Mania. And then at this point, this has been a feud that's been going on, since like SummerSlam?
Yeah.
It's just lost a lot of its mystique for me in the way they've built it. Whereas this, the Rock and Austin feud, it was more or less reignited a month before Mania 17 and built perfectly. I mean, just watch the My Way video package and try not to be hyped for it.
Best
You know
video
what I mean?
package ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Yeah. And it's there's something about spectacle in wrestling. That's about 40% of the game when it comes to the big spots and it's about spectacle. It's to capture the imagination of the viewer and to suspend the disbelief to the point where you are watching just two like warriors in the ring against each other, two enigmatic characters. What better sums that up than these two gentlemen? And like with you saying it like that, like the way you've just pitched it to me there, I never really thought of it that way about like because throughout the build up of the match, I know like it was Austin getting frustrated a lot of the time, but you putting it in the sense of like he had to sell his soul to the devil to finally put Rock away because throughout the entire video package he was there like saying he wants this more than anything in the world. At the end of the day, storytelling is just that simple. It really is. It really is. You just got to lay the foundations and build bricks on it. It's it. That's it.
Yeah,
And with characters like Austin and Rock, you can really make something special. And like I said earlier, they've been trying to recapture the magic of this match so desperately. They've forgotten the fundamentals. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and it's a textbook display of a main event. You know what I mean? It has the feel. It has like you say, like at the end of a WrestleMania, a crowd should be dead because so much has happened. 13
Well,
or so matches or whatever.
I feel like these days we expect it. I mean, it's improved now that they've split WrestleMania over 2 nights, but obviously when certainly we became friends, we had to endure, if you include the pre-show, 8-hour long manias.
Yeah.
I suppose the blessing for this one, this is back when WrestleMania was still only a 4-hour show, but even then, like you got to remember, this is the show that it had a Benoit Angle match on. It had that triple threat hardcore match. It had TLC 2, which easily could have been on this list as well. That's an honorable
Mm.
mention I missed off. Had the first ever Triple H and Undertaker match at a WrestleMania. Like it's a flawless show, and throughout it, the crowd never faltered once. And the fact that they still have all this energy for the final match, and again, WWE just seems to have such missed the trick with storytelling because all the story simply is Austin wants the WWE title and he's willing to do anything. And again, he just can't seem to beat The Rock. Like throughout the match, he hits him with stunner, he hits him with a rock bottom, hits him with chair shots, and The Rock keeps kicking out and getting back up. And it's only again until Vince comes out, hands Austin the chair again, and Austin has to basically break the thing over The Rock that he's able to get the 1, 2, 3. It's just
Yeah.
simple storytelling.
Simple, but it's so effective in its
Yeah.
simplicity. So effective. Yeah, I need to rewatch this match because I always kind of hold it in as big a claim in my head as like like I said, the match. This is where this is like a defining match in wrestling. Full stop.
Absolutely.
It's
And
yeah.
massive shout out in particular to this match also has my favorite commentary team, which is of course Jim Ross and Paul Heyman. Because this
Oh
is like when
yeah.
Paul Heyman had just stepped into the booth, and yeah, I mean this is like peak JR, and I honestly Heyman is one of those people I think people often forget he did commentary because he was only in the booth for like not even like the full year. It was only about 9 months or something until Jerry Lawler came back. But yeah, they're like my favorite duo because like it's got that perfect dichotomy of like Heyman constantly trying to just go JR because he's always on the side of the heels and always constantly digging at him, and then Jim Ross just being his brilliant self. So yeah,
Mm, yeah.
that I love.
Uh, I am one of those people, and I will admit this without shame. I'm going to also briefly bring it to football, then take it right back to wrestling. Whenever Southampton get a win, which is rare,
Mhm.
whenever we get a win, and we have a gentleman called Drury, Peter Drury.
Jewelry.
He's like known as the football commentator, the JR of football, if you will. And I usually watch the highlights to see if he's commentating, and if he is commentating on a Southampton win, I will usually rewatch those highlights about 10 times in a day and then do the same the next day, because I support Southampton, I love Southampton. But
Yeah.
anyways, my point is this: commentary is so important to how you enjoy wrestling, in my opinion. I know
Yeah.
that's a very subjective take, but when a commentary team is on fire, when they are basically when they're basically doing live freaking poetry, when they're commentating on a match, and they give the all important sound bites and the all important lines that are going to be used in highlights and video packages and Hall of Fame packages to boot. They have such an important job, and when you get a good commentary team, it makes that match so much better to rewatch, so much better to rewatch, and it really adds to like I said, the spectacle. And I forgot they had that team on this match. Yeah, all the more reason to. I put a star next to it. I'm going to put a circle around that star. Doesn't really mean much. Just yeah.
That means it's highlighted.
But yeah, no. Wow, with everything you say, you sell this match. Sell this match to me more. Yeah. Wow. What a list.
What a journey, eh?
Yeah, and from that, I got some viewing to do. Specifically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matches I need to rewatch.
Hey man, I mean, you're ill with COVID again. What else are you gonna do? It's
I mean,
WrestleMania
heck,
weekend, baby. Just have a big wrestling fiesta.
yes,
Watch some
exactly.
good shit before you're possibly disappointed by the biggest show of the year.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I keep forgetting it's WrestleMania. It doesn't
Yeah,
feel like it.
just
Like
snuck
last
up
couple of
on it,
years, it
ain't
just
you?
hasn't felt like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It's a bit
I've
like Christmas now, isn't it? Like, hard to get in the
yeah.
mood for Christmas. I'm kind of having the same vibes for Mania a lot more now, which
Yeah.
sucks. I
Uh,
like, again, one of, again, going back to the second match, one of the things I learned from listening to Tuesday Night Show, especially in Jim's Horn, is like, I try to be as positive as I can about wrestling. I don't want to be that snarky fan anymore. But I also won't hold back if I feel like it's something I'm not enjoying. And that's unfortunately just indicative of the whole WWE product at the moment. Um, yeah, it's just like, it just feels like, again, not to harp on it, when you compare Mania 17 to this one, which has nearly been like 20 years difference, it just feels like WWE really lost the touch with just building stuff that makes you want to watch, that feels compelling. Like, the only thing I'm really excited to see on this is the potential Cody Rhodes debut and Austin's showdown with Owens. Edge versus AJ should be good as well, and I think Bianca, and so this is some stuff I'm looking forward to. I'm not that amped up for it.
yeah. It just feels like a long time.
Mhm.
Like you say. I want to stay positive about wrestling at the end of the day, because it's
Yeah.
something I dedicate a lot of time to and dedicate a lot of love to.
I mean, hey, this episode's going to be coming out way after Mania's been and gone, so hopefully we're wrong. Hopefully we're wrong about this.
Yeah. Hopefully, this is the
But
best Mania of all time, and we have to reshuffle our lists to accommodate the card per se. Um, who knows? Who knows?
who
Not me.
knows? Yeah.
But incredible list there, Greg. It was really nice getting to the bottom of how wrestling could kind of influence someone on their day to day. Like,
Yeah.
it's simply put, like just like like your list of like matches that constantly change, like it's a league table. I might do the same thing, because,
Yeah.
like I said, MJF Punk is on that list now, but you know how much my list shuffled and shook and dipped
But
about. So,
I think at some point I will basically get everyone sat down again just to redo these lists, just to see if anything has potentially changed, or even
yeah,
just maybe get them to do a second top 10. Because I mean, honestly, again, like, there's so many other stuff I could put on this list. I feel like this is pretty solid, but as we say, stuff can get swapped out all the time. Like, new
yeah,
stuff's happening. revisiting old stuff. That's the thing. Like these lists are subjective, and again, they will always change, like even by the next day. But certainly, a lot of these choices I think would firmly be here, especially my top four. I feel like they're basically locked in, and I'm just happy I could share them with people. So I really hope if you haven't seen them, go check them out and enjoy them. They mean a lot to me.
Yes. And I know how much Brogan loves the Royal Rumble 2001. I would love to do a quiz off between you and him on
Mhm.
Royal Rumble trivia, especially of that era, because of that DVD, he knows it so very well. If ever you're up for doing a one-on-one quiz against him,
Oh,
just to
certainly
test
up
your
for
knowledge.
that, and I would certainly like to get Brogan on Ultimate Top 10. I would like to hear his
Yes.
matches.
I will message him tonight and see what he says, and I'll get right back to you because he's one of the reasons I got into wrestling as well.
There we
So
go.
there we go. This chain reaction of people just loving wrestling and then meeting each other to tell each other how much they love wrestling. Is what we do best.
Hell yeah, man. Hell
Apart
yeah.
from telling each other how much we hate wrestling at points too.
Yeah.
Uh, because it's a special thing. It's a really strange niche that we found ourselves in. Like the other day, I was like on a dating app. I'd have to then explain, like, say, those reality bachelorette TV shows, like, what's
Yeah.
three things you love? And I'd have to say something like anime, Dungeons and Dragons, and wrestling, which puts me in the three, like, the trifecta of weird nerd shit, basically.
Oh no, dude, like mine is like again, if I was doing that, it would again be wrestling, board games, video games, and comic books. Like I'm a guy who's got a whole collection of toys for God's sake.
Yeah, no. But the comic books are cool now, though. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Uh,
one cool point.
Actually, Vin Diesel's playing D&D now. He's openly admitted to it, and he's openly admitted to Karen Gillan playing as well. So you know what? D&D's cool now too.
D&D is on the rise. I mean, there's a big what's his name?
Matt
The
Mercer.
guy no, the guy he was meant to play Deathstroke in the Zack Snyder's DC universe.
Ooh.
He's got a name I can never friggin' pronounce, and he's married to the woman who was in Modern Family. Oh, this is gonna drive me freaking insane. Hang on a sec. I will cut some of this out.
It's
He's
okay.
married to Sofia Vergara. Joe Manganiello. I'm probably butchering his name.
Joe Mangelina. Yeah, because he was on Critical Role. Like the famous D&D podcast and live show.
Because he's got his own D&D brand of like cool
Yeah.
T-shirts and stuff like that, and he's got like I think Big Show's played in his D&D club before.
He has. He gets like famous people in to play D&D. And a fun fact about Joe Mangelino. Sorry, Joe.
Let's just call him Joe.
Yeah.
Let's just make it
Fun
easy
fact
on
about Joe
ourselves.
is that like basically all the D&D stuff, like all like the source books for like adventures and stuff, like the pre-written stuff, is made by a company called Wizards of the Coast. And on Critical Role, on their final episode, spoilers by the way, but Joe does this crazy move where he like the final boss has this like magic hand, and when they kill him, what he basically does is cuts off his hand, cuts off the boss's hand, heals it on his hand, and teleports to hell to worship his god forever. And that is now because Wizard of the Coast loved that move so much. That is now canon because they've written it down as canon in one of the other source books. So like that, and this dude, bearing in mind also, big muscly bloke, big muscly jock looking bloke, like tough bastard. So and he's out there playing D&D, and at the end of the day, wrestlers look like John Cena as well. So heck, nerd shit's in. Get out of the way, you bloody baseball players.
Get out of the way, cool kids. It's our time now. We're the cool kids
exactly. To be fair, you got like MMA fighters doing anime poses and shit now. So heck, nerd shit's in. Nerd shit's in.
Man.
We were there first.
Yeah.
We're riding the wave.
Fuck
Now we're very eligible bachelors.
Well. Well, it's been an absolutely fun journey, Scott. So, shall we take them through the plugs?
Yes. Yes. You lead it. It's
I'll lead it. All right,
yes.
I'll
Yes.
take over for the end
Absolutely.
then.
Because I'd shit it up. Like, I absolutely would.
You've done good today, buddy. You've been a good host. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, well, if you want to come check us out over the socials, the Bearhug Club podcast, Facebook and YouTube, Bearhug Club pod Instagram, and Bearhug Club on Twitter. Come check us out over the website as well for all the happenings and goings on. So that's bearhugpod.wixsite.com/Bearhug Club Network. At the moment, the newest things we've had on were me and Garrod started our General Managers series where we've been playing through My GM. So keep an eye out. There's new episodes of that at least once or twice out a week. We also had our first part of our book club where we covered Have a Nice Day as our first book. If you want to watch that, part 1 is on YouTube with lots of cool visuals I've added to it. Or if you want to listen to the full episode, it's available anywhere you can get your podcasts from. But until then, take care, everyone, and goodbye.
Goodbye.